morning. Welcome to worship this morning at First Unitarian Church of Orlando. I'm Dave Shine, a member of the worship team here at 1U. If you are new among us, you are especially welcome to this congregation. These days, someone said, the church has left the building. Indeed, we can't meet in person, but we are church together online, connected by spirit and love. Whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome here. For more information on our congregation, go to www.orlandouu.org. Today, after worship, we have two online options. Informal fellowship, to gather with each other and chat for about 20 minutes in small breakout rooms. And we have a special meeting of wrestling with our understanding of race. In the turmoil of events, our attention is called to issues of race and racism. Many of us are wrestling with understanding and responding to our experience, our emotions, and what we are called to do. So we'll gather to have a facilitated discussion and reflect with each other. Both are at 11:30. Each has a separate Zoom link and password, which was sent in the email e-blast on Friday. This is an active and vibrant church. If you'd like to make an offering to support the many ministries of this congregation, you can go to orlandouu.org and click the donate button in the upper right-hand corner. Or you can send a text to the number in the notes or comments section on your screen, or you can always send us a check. It's great being together again. Now let's gather in worship in song. Aubrey?
The words for the hymn We Are Gathered were written by Amanda Udis Kessler, though the tune is actually an old tune in our hymnal written in 1813. Amanda and her wife write many modern hymns for UU and liberal Christian churches, with many of the hymns expressing a positive LGBTQ spiritual message. All of the music that they write is copyright free, and they encourage churches to share their music freely. The words for We Are Gathered were written specifically for churches like 1U that are continuing services remotely during the COVID pandemic. We are gathered in the Spirit, though our bodies are apart, filled with joy and touched with wonder, separate hands but mingled hearts, giving thanks and singing praises for the love that calls us on from our many different places. We are gathered into one. We are gathered in our sorrow. We are gathered in our fear, in our pain and in our worry, in our anger and our tears, as we tend to one another with our gifts and with our care. Our community is stronger through the faith and hope we share. We are gathered in commitment to the planet that is whole. Works of justice, acts of kindness, bless the world and heal our soul. As our voices join together, may our song of peace resound. May we offer in abundance all the grace that we have found.
We gather this week amid the turmoil of our nation and of our hearts. As we prepare to light our chalice, let's remember these words from the former president of our National Association, the Reverend Bill Sinkford. We are a gentle and generous people, but let us not forget our anger. May it fuel not only our commitment to compassion, but also our commitment to make fundamental changes. Our religious vision must again and again ask, who is my neighbor? And strive always to include more and more of us. In our Unitarian Universalist tradition, we light a chalice before worship to set apart this time as sacred time, apart from the clatter of the world. So please say with me our familiar words. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share.
Good morning. I'm so glad you were able to join us today. My name is Sarah Gray, and I am the religious educator here at First Unitarian Church of Orlando. And today I would like to share a story with you all that really helped my family when these news stories started coming to the forefront on our TVs and on our phones. This story is called The Breaking News, written and illustrated by Sarah Lynn Rule. I remember when we heard the bad news. Suddenly, Mom is glued to the television. Dad can't stop checking his phone. They whisper, and I pretend not to hear. It is more than a little scary. Mom forgets to tuck me in. Dad is too tired for bedtime stories. It seems like everyone else feels it too. At school, my teacher says to look for the helpers. Even when the news is bad, you can still find good people trying to make things better in big and small ways. I want to help in a big way. I decide to put on the funniest show ever to make everyone laugh again. But the grown-ups, they don't feel like laughing. I tell them about the force fields I'll invent to keep us all safe. But their smiles are tiny and sad. I try to be on my best behavior all the time, so good, but they hardly even notice. I think maybe there's nothing I can do to help in a big way. I feel small. So maybe I can try to do just one small thing? And maybe another, and another, and one more? Small things don't solve everything. The bad news is still there after all. But then again, so are we. As you can see, the whole neighborhood is coming together, everyone doing their own little small part to help and spread joy during hard times. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this story.
In our time of joys and concerns this morning, there is much on our hearts. First, many among our congregation will recall that morning 4 years ago when you arrived at worship on June 12, 2016, and many discovered for the first time the tragedy at the Pulse nightclub that had happened early that morning. Before it was all over, there were 49 souls lost, a violent act on our LGBTQ neighbors and on the community at large. Many of those lost were Latinx neighbors. This congregation did remarkable ministry following that tragedy that is remembered to this day. So today we light this memorial candle that lists the names and as well as the pictures of all those lost that fateful morning. They are not forgotten. Their light remains eternally in our hearts and in the heart of the sacred. Of course, we also offer witness, continuing witness to the unjust death of George Floyd, and to offer hope even in these challenging days that we will work through all it takes as a nation to continue the work of anti-racism and dismantling white supremacist structures. And of course, all of this is playing out in the continued context of the COVID-19 pandemic. We affirm the presence of hope and resilience as we move forward together. In our congregation this week, there are several joys. Jeter is a proud grandfather for the 4th time with the birth of Eleanor in Greensboro, North Carolina, the first child of daughter Betsy and her husband Eric. Eleanor was born last Saturday, May 23rd, I should say. Libby shares her joy about the NASA SpaceX astronaut successful launch and docking with the International Space Station last week, a wonderful reminder of hope, especially in these days. Now, as always, to prepare ourselves for meditation and prayer, let's take a deep breath together. Mindful that in this simple act, we declare our interdependence with each other and with all. Now, let's open our hearts in song. Aubrey.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
In the upcoming meditation or prayer to remember, commemorate, or pray for others, you're invited to name them in the silence, in the communion of names. If you're on Facebook, use the comment section, or if you're on Zoom, use the chat box. With Zoom, please make sure that your chat comments are going to all participants, not just to the panelists, that is our worship team this morning, unless that is your intention. So with open hearts, we hear these words, followed by silence. We are a gentle, loving people. Even and especially in these times when injustice is confronted, lives are remembered, hopes are challenged, then rekindled again and again. When words fail in the face of all that is happening, Spirit of life, Spirit of love, open our hearts, open our minds, break open our spirits to feel both the deep tragedy of this day so that we can celebrate the deep sacredness of this day as we move forward together, work together, breathe together, pray together, to know that within all the troubles of the world is a spirit and a love that will not, does not, and cannot let us go, that holds and envelops all, especially the stranger, the oppressed, the victims of violence. In these days when words fail, we focus on breath, knowing our lives depend on the greater context of our life and all life. And so we remember all those who are hurting in any manner of body, mind, spirit, or community, and pray and affirm healing, clarity, connection, and community. And now, with the meditations of our hearts, we enter the silence and the communion of names. And so it is. Blessed be. Amen.
I see a mass of irate eyes. Voices cry out, it's not fair. Feel the weight of all their anger. Feel the weight of their despair. But that's a burden we can share. Can I change the world? I can live with open hands. But can I change the world? Well, I can give all that I can, and I can sing and I can love, and when all is said and done, I can change the world alone, but I can change the world with you. Hope can drown in so much need. Throw my hands up in the air, but I have seen the world awake, and though I bend, I night and you are there. Can I change the world? I can live with open hands, but can I change the world? Well, I can give all that I can, and I can sing and I can love, and when all is said and done, I can't change the world alone, but I can change the world with you. We can change the world. We can live with open hands. We can change the world. We can give all that we can, and we can sing and we can love, and when all is said and done, we can change the world, but not alone. We can change the world with you. We can change the world with you.
May our eyes be open. The theme for our June worship is, what does it mean to be a people of compassion? So today we look at the ethic of compassion. What is compassion? Is it simply feeling for another person, feeling sorry for another person? The great Karen Armstrong, who writes widely in comparative religion, said, "Our English word for compassion comes from a Greek-Latin root and means to endure something with another person. That means putting yourself imaginatively in other people's shoes, not just seeing things from your own blinkered and often self-interested perspective." This past week in the Washington Post, filmmaker Cassie Lemons, who is an African-American woman, said that as a filmmaker, she helps people imagine what it's like to be someone else, to experience someone else's experience. In an opinion piece titled, "White Americans, Your Lack of Imagination is Killing Us," she says, "When it comes to Black life in America, there's only one conclusion I can reach about some white people. You don't care to put yourself in our shoes. The consequences of this lack of imagination for Black Americans are deadly. It's no secret that you like our music, our style, our swagger. You admire our athleticism, our beauty. Things you can sample without diving too deep, without knowing too much, without fear of being scarred. You would rather be a tourist. You prefer to dip your toes in our culture without really understanding it." She says, "Now imagine that even now, after everything we've survived and accomplished, after we've built this country with our sweat and blood, our backs and brains, after we've sacrificed our lives in every war that has ever been fought for America, this country is still not safe for us. It's still not safe to go jogging while Black, to listen to loud music while Black, to drive while Black, to birdwatch while Black, to shop at Barney's while Black, to be a 13-year-old boy while Black. And it's not safe to lie on the ground, not resisting arrest, while Black." She encourages white people to feel some rage about this. She says, "While rage can lead to tragedy, it is also a terrible thing to waste. Rage can be useful, necessary even. It fuels our pride and lubricates our resilience. With discipline and unity, rage can change the world. So be enraged with us and for us. If you're unwilling to do that, know this: you can look away all you want, but we see you. You can look away all you want. This has been a constant theme in race relations in America. Recall the great 1953 novel by Ralph Ellison, Invisible Man. George Floyd may have been invisible before his martyrdom, but he certainly isn't now. This tragedy has captured the attention of Americans, both black and white and otherwise, more than previous similar violent attacks on African Americans. Part of it, at least for me, may be the egregious amount of time the officer's knee was on Mr. Floyd's neck, which belied the officer's distrust, anger, pure racism, suspicion, even hatred of Mr. Floyd because of his race? Or maybe the incident is just the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back. Another incident in a stream of incidents is just one too many. And maybe that this happened in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, a pandemic that has affected, of course, marginalized communities more than middle or upper middle class communities, further enraging the pain of this senseless murder certainly is part of the equation. For whatever the reason, it feels like the attention of the white community in particular and America in general has been focused more than usual on this unjust act. It feels like the awareness of the plight of the African American in America is becoming more widely understood. At least for now, people seem to be noticing. One event this past week, of course, was what happened in Lafayette Square in Washington, D.C., with the show of military force by the president against protesters so he could walk across the street to have a photo opportunity holding his Bible in front of a boarded-up Episcopal church building. Well, seeing how the Bible was used in this instance, I decided to dip into my Bible. It's not leather-bound or gilt-edged like the president's, perhaps, but it is well-worn and well-read. And there's one story, very brief story, I want to dip into this morning from the Gospel of Mark, one of the four Gospels and the briefest and most concise and most brash and direct of the Gospels. I think that's why I like it. And it's a story that you've probably heard of, the cleansing of the leper or the healing of the leper. It's in chapter 1 of Mark, starting at verse 40. A leper came to him, begging him and kneeling, and said to him, "If you choose, you can make me clean." Moved with compassion, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, and said to him, "I do choose, be made clean." Immediately the leprosy left him, and he was made clean. Jesus said, "Go, show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded as a testimony to them." The cleansing of the leper. The healing of the leper. In that day, leprosy was a serious communicable disease. The man with leprosy knew well his role in society with that disease. It was written in the Levitical law. In Leviticus chapter 13, verse 45, it says, "Anyone with such a defiling disease must wear torn clothes, let their hair be unkempt, cover the lower part of their face, and cry out, 'Unclean, unclean.' He shall remain unclean. As long as he has the disease, he is unclean. He shall live alone. His dwelling shall be outside the camp." So not only did the man have a terrible disease, he was an outsider in his society. He lived in isolation. But Jesus, in this story as in so many others, went against his own culture of the day. And Jesus touched the untouchable. Now, this isn't just a story about a magical healer who makes everything okay. It's also a story that models an ethic in the world. Jesus touches the one he should not touch, and Jesus heals him. But that's not all. Jesus sends the man to the priest to certify that he has been cleansed so that the man could re-enter normal society. So he would no longer be an outsider. Jesus not only heals him, Jesus restores his place in society. Now, there's something else here in the story I want to point to. This story from the New Testament, of course, I read in English, and it's translated from the Greek, which was written on scrolls centuries ago, millennia ago, after several years of being in the oral tradition. And of course, not all words or concepts translate evenly, so it's not uncommon if you look across the various translations of the Bible that you'll see different shades of meaning. And in this story, I read from the New Revised Standard Version, NRSV version of the Bible, which is pretty much the standard translation for mainline to liberal Christian and other communities. And it actually translates Jesus being moved with pity. Now, if you look at some other translations, including the old King James Version, that version said that Jesus was moved with compassion, as I read. Other translations, though, render that differently. One said that he responded, he was moved with mercy. Another said he was deeply moved. One said that Jesus was incensed. And another translation from the New International Version, NIV, which serves pretty much the evangelical community among Protestantism, the NIV said that Jesus was indignant. Now, not indignant or incensed against the man, but against the condition. That is, Jesus responded with anger at what was happening to this man. And if you look across the various meanings of these translations, it gives us a sense of the richness of the concept of compassion, what compassion can include. Yes, it includes being moved, feeling sorry for another, having pity. But it can also mean becoming incensed and indignant and even rageful at this condition. This man should not be ill. He should not be an outsider. Brian Heasley, a Christian leader and activist in the UK, says of this passage that something boiled up within Jesus that caused him to break the cultural barriers and touch him. What he did was just and right. What he did was to restore social justice, Beasley says. He says this is a justice narrative modeling a way to respond to injustice. We see an issue, we are moved by that issue, we have compassion, we are incensed, we are indignant, we offer mercy, then we do something to change that condition. So compassion is not just about tender feelings. It is an ethic of being moved by righteous rage, Heasley says. And it starts with noticing, with seeing, with truly observing. And this, I think, is where we are right now as a nation. We are what feels like, to me, what I hope this moment is of a turning point that might bring healing because of what we have observed and experienced. Just this last week, Paige Ingram, an activist with Black Lives Unitarian Universalism, Blue, said on a Tuesday night online vigil. She said, "I invite you to not turn away from what is happening, none of it. This is a time when we get to show our people what it means to be brave while our knees are quaking. Tune in to those who will move with you into new times within our faith, into a resistance of the hatred of peoples embedded in our country's system, into a resilience of a fierce and unbending love for all, for transformation." Transformation. This transformation is so needed in our world now. For the work of anti-racism, for the work of peace, for the work of love personified in our communities. For, as another Unitarian Universalist activist said, for a true universalism that upholds the dignity of all, but not a wishy-washy universalism that means all beliefs and behaviors are acceptable, or pretending that the call to dismantle white supremacy culture within our faith is somehow a tyrannical plot to curb freedom of conscience and belief. My friends, we do not turn away. We respond. We touch. We heal. And we are healed. May it be so. Amen.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we'll walk hand in hand someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall all be free someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. believe that we shall live in peace someday.
Thank you, Aubrey. Now, as we extinguish the chalice, please say these words with me. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Again, my friends, remember, we haven't just been to church, we are the church. And when the church is the church, it is nothing more, it is nothing less, it is nothing other than a place of overcoming the injustices of the age, so that we will be the people we want to be, the people we need to be, the church in the world. This week, be the church. Go in grace. Amen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice, roots for